Eagles talk. We are here again on Monday night for you. We are doing top 10 Eagles defensive players since the year 2000. This is going to be really interesting, guys. And we're going to talk about the current Eagles defense and see who are we high on? Who can make this list 10 years from now? We'll see. So we got that. And of course, Les Bowen, Bone on the Birds coming at you. Let's go.
You love the Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! You love the Philadelphia Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! Philadelphia!
Eagles Talk on A2D Radio, coming at you by Baggio's Bread, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pies, sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Make sure you mention A2D Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. It's your boy Chucks, it's Brinks, and it's PY. Gentlemen, how are you? How was your week? How you doing?
Dying.
Fantastic.
As usual, PY. You're always
My asthma is flaring up. It's like 100 degrees
Whoa.
every day. The air quality sucks.
Well, today, I don't know about you guys, but like today was the weather was really nice.
It's windy.
Windy, yeah, out of nowhere. I don't know how the rain last night had anything to do with it, but yeah, it was nice today. Supposedly, it's supposed to be like this again on Thursday. I know it's supposed to be hot on Wednesday, so
Yes,
summer's
thank
here.
God I'm off.
Yeah, summer's here, right?
Go
So,
winter.
hot weather. I like fall and spring. I like my in between weathers.
There you go.
So we're gonna get to our top 10 Eagles defensive players since 2000. Let's get to the poll question because that's gonna kind of that's gonna reveal a little bit of our listing. So we're gonna get to it. We're gonna show it here. Fletcher Cox, second best Eagles defensive player since 2000. Agree or disagree? I'm gonna let the fam, everyone in the chat, start to answer this poll. And we're going to answer it organically as we go through our rankings here. Okay. So we already got some answers here. I know Tom Arnone, he says hard to disagree. So yeah, so it looks like he disagrees. John chimes in, it's summer, it's hot, just like winter's cold. Yeah, exactly. And then Martian says, PY, it's only Monday.
I'm hurting. It hurts.
It's bad, yeah. And then yeah, John Mama says between periods. Yeah, I'm assuming, John, you're watching Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm tuned into that, so I got that in the background too playing. But I'm here now. We're going to talk about it. So let's bring up that chart, our rankings, right? So
Chuck has dreams about these charts.
yeah, a little bit. Let's do. Do you guys want to do? I'm trying to see how we can do this. I want to make it interesting, so I want to go from. Let's do our top 5. Each of us do our top 5. We'll do the bottom 5 later on in the show, but let's get to the top 5 first. So PY, let's start with you. Who do you have from 1 to 5 in your rankings?
So get the pitchforks out already. I got Doc 1.
Okay. I mean, if you didn't have Dawkins at 1, then that's pitchforks worthy. But go ahead. Dawkins.
Malcolm Jenkins.
Okay. All right. I love Malcolm, so I'm not gonna argue too much. 3.
Graham.
A lot of recency bias here, I can tell. 4.
Cox.
And then 5.
Trent Cole.
Cole, the only older one. Brinks, who you got? Number 1.
Top 5. Dawkins is 1. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Dawkins, yeah.
2, Fletch.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
3, Trent Cole.
Trent.
Solid.
Oh. 4.
Brandon Graham.
Mm-hmm. And 5.
Malcolm Jenkins.
There you go. So it's basically the same freaking list. It's just
Well,
like
we'll see. Let me see what I have. So obviously Brian Dawkins is going to be number 1.
Yeah.
2, I do have Fletch, and it was tough between this guy. And I'm surprised you guys don't have him. Maybe because it was the second half of his career, so maybe that's why I'm including it, but I'm 3. I thought it was pretty simple for me to put Troy Vincent. Troy Vincent at number 3.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
I mean, you look at his accolades.
No. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be on there. I'm saying that early.
Yeah, he was like the premier Eagles corner that era. I mean, to me he was better than Lito, better than a lot of the corners we've had since. So I got Troy. 4, I've got Malcolm, and I love Malcolm, so I wanted to put him higher, but I couldn't put him above Troy. And then 5, I have at 5? Brandon Graham. I have Brandon Graham. So the one guy that I don't have, so I included Troy Vincent. I didn't have Trent Cole. And maybe I do have him too low. And we'll see. Second half, when we do our second halves, we'll see. But it's so tough because I know that Trent Cole is the all-time like sack leader for our franchise. If you look at his accolades, he's only had 2 Pro Bowls.
Yep.
So like, I know that's not everything, but like I'm trying to encompass everything that these players did, and it's just like, wow, only 2 Pro Bowls. I felt like he should have had more, more accolades, at least one, second team All Pro or something, right? But he didn't. So I had to weigh a little bit of that. So again, to me, it gets really tough once you get to like 5-ish. So
Yep.
So that's my explanation for why I didn't have Trent Cole. Maybe again, I know people that are gonna like think that's blasphemous, and I understand it. It was tough.
It's an opinion thing, though. Like your opinion of Trent Cole may not be what mine is. Your opinion, my opinion of Troy Vincent might not be what yours is. Like, also, like it all depends on like when you started watching. Like, I'll be honest. Like when I was younger, I didn't really like the Birds. Like, I became a big Eagles fan in the early 2012s when I was kind of just on my own, just trying to find what I wanted to like. And that's kind of so when we do these early 2000s lists, it's just like, okay, let's do some deep dive.
I think when we started doing them last year, I could tell a little bit that you don't remember as much from the early 2000s. It's okay, I can understand. How old were you? Like, were you watching also in the early 2000s?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I'm a lifer. I've been going to the vet. I've been to the lake forever. I got the vet. Last game at the vet against Tampa, I got that plaque up. I've been to everything, every big game in the whole Andy Reid era. I was probably there.
So I'll ask you then. Do you have Troy Vincent? I know you obviously don't have.
Yeah, he's on my list. I like it's early 2000s, so like really, there's just more of a sample size for some of the guys that I have over.
Understandable.
A couple of the guys that flourished in, the Jim Johnson era. I also gave a big leg up to anyone who played under Chip Kelly during the philosophical defensive switch and was able to flourish, like Brandon Graham, like Trent Cole, Fletcher Cox.
Gotcha.
And then Malcolm won. Like, he was really good in the Super Bowl year, and they won the Super Bowl, so that also holds weight.
It does hold on. Yeah.
When I'm looking at the Jim Johnson guys, it's really like 2000 to 2003, whereas the other guys have like 20 years to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like their whole career was in, the majority of the 2000s.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That does explain a little bit because he came to the Eagles in 1996, and I'm talking about Troy Vincent, 1996. So that for the first 4 years he's with us, it's disqualified from this conversation, and then 2000 he was with us from 2000 to 2003. So that's the second half of his Eagles tenure. So like half of his Eagles tenure is not even in the 2000s.
Yep.
So it's definitely understandable.
There's a few guys like that on this list where it's like they had a few multiple runs, and you can argue, which sucks because it's like their first run could be as good, if not better, than their second run.
No, I hear you. It's so difficult. So some of the comments they got. Let's see. I've got Martian is already upset with you, PY. Just Jenkins over Fletcher is nasty work.
Consistency.
Povia says, I'll go contrarian, disagrees. He's got Dawkins, then Cole, then Cox. Well, yes, Cole really, really up high.
People love Trent Cole.
John Malman says Doc, Cox, Trent Cole, Troy Vincent, Pensbury's Troy Vincent, and then BG. So yeah, he does have Troy up there too. Martian says Cole went from 4-3 to 3-4 and still hunted. Yeah, he did because he was that edge rusher, that that finesse guy. Trent Cole was such like a pure pass, and I felt like he was underrated. You know what I mean? Like during said, maybe that's why he only has 2 Pro Bowls. Yeah, he only has 2 Pro Bowls. Maybe that's why. That's a part of the conversation. But he was so underrated as one of the best pure pass rushers during that time. But I felt like he never got that recognition league wide. You know what I mean? So maybe that's part of why he doesn't have those accolades. So that's definitely understandable. And I wanted to put Cole high. There's some players though in the second half of who I have that that are tough to put him ahead of, in my opinion. But trying to look at some of your lists before we get into the second half, trying to see if there's anyone else on Olympic. Now, PY, you've got because I want to get into Martian's complaint. I know like I'm going to disagree. I do think that Cox deserves to be higher. So if I'm going to just compare Fletcher Cox and his accolades, what he was able to accomplish in terms of awards.
I have it right here. 6.
Go ahead.
6 Pro Bowls, one time first team All Pro, 2 times second team All Pro, obviously a Super Bowl champion, and he was on the All 2010 decade team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Malcolm Jenkins, he's a 3-time Pro Bowl. 2-time Pro Bowl. I think all 3 of those were with the Eagles. 2-time Super Bowl champ. Obviously, one of those championship years was with the Saints. And then a 2016 Alan Page Award winner. I forget what that award entails, but you've got Cox who clearly outweighs Jenkins in terms of accolades. I think it's just tough for me to put. I love Malcolm Jenkins. Like
I'm okay with that. But like I just, for me, the impact and what was that Malcolm Jenkins gave this team. Like obviously, like he doesn't have the Pro Bowls. He may not have like the sacks or things like that. But the sheer impact he had on the field and what he did as a leader was just. It's hard for other people to quantify it. It just means a lot to me. I'm also like I'm not the biggest Fletcher guy. Like he drives me crazy from time to time. He's an Eagle great, but I also don't think he's as great as other people think he is. I always thought Brandon was better, and a lot of times Brandon would be having these great seasons where he's playing better than Fletcher. But because Fletcher has the name, they wouldn't talk about Brandon as much. They're like, oh, he still has to live up. And he did it. Like, he ended up, they kept talking about him for years. It's like, oh, are they going to finally live up to the hype where he was drafted? And it's just like,
I'd say he did, though. I mean, like, you've got Fletcher Cox, who for a stretch of his career was arguably a top 2 interior defensive lineman in the whole league behind only Aaron Donald. Like he was in that tier. And that year they won the Super Bowl. I don't think anyone could argue that he was the best player on that defense. That year we won the
They also don't beat the Atlanta Falcons when Nick Foles couldn't get his head out of his rear end the entire game. Like Fletcher Cox was a complete wrecking crew.
Yeah.
Like go rewatch that game. Like they don't
that whole game is like shenanigans from start to finish.
If you ask offenses too, who was the first player during that era that they had to game them for? It was Cox. And again, I don't mean to put anything. I don't want to talk bad about Jenkins or Graham, but
yes, you do.
Cox was the premier player. He just was, and the accolades show that was true. I mean, he has those awards for a reason. 6-time Pro Bowl, 1-time All Pro, and the 2010s All 2010s team. It's tough to put, no matter how much I love Jenkins and BG. And I'm part of the people that say we will never have slander against BG or Jenkins in here. It's just hard for me to objectively look at it and say, yeah, I'd put them ahead of Cox. I think Cox deserves that title, that ranking ahead of them because of what he's been able to do. He was a dominant player. And I think to what you're saying, there were some seasons where he didn't live up to his contract. I get that, but even when he wasn't, he was still a dominant player. Like it's just because he didn't live up to that contract doesn't mean that like he still wasn't having an impact. And I think that especially this past season, there's not a lot of guys I'd point to on the defense and say, "Oh, he's still playing well." Cox is one of like maybe the one person on defense I'd say, "Yeah, Cox is he's still playing well." Like when everyone else kind of tailed off. So you put that in in his give him credit for that, and I think that he had a great career. Let's bring in Les. So
Let's
Les,
go.
how you doing, Les?
Great, guys. How are you?
Doing really well. As you can see, we're having conversations,
Yeah.
trying to rank these out, and it's really tough to not mention people and rank some people ahead. But like we started with our top 5, and we'll get to our second bottom 5s in a little bit. But just your reactions. Like the poll question is: Fletcher Cox is the second greatest Eagle since 2000.
Yeah, he's my second. I sent my, I think, Sick Chrome. I sent you the my. Actually, I sent my top 20 because it's hard to go with 10. But I ranked them in order.
What's another 10?
Yeah.
But I got Doc, Fletch, Trent Cole, Trot, and BG is my top 5.
Nice.
I'm a little older than you guys, so I'm a little more into the previous eras. I think, in all due respect to Chuck's, I don't think you can leave Trent Cole out of your top 5 for this.
I felt bad. I felt bad.
There's no way.
Shame. Shame.
Best player on the team for several years. Best player on the best defensive player on the team for several years. Guy that just gave ridiculous effort. Wild-eyed ferocity.
5th round pick, wasn't he?
5th round pick. Yeah. He's getting my top 5. This is subjective, obviously, but yeah. But I do like Fletch as number 2. I think he has to be. I think, given his accolades and his stature in the league, I understand what you were saying about, you didn't always see him. He didn't always show up as much as you'd like.
Great Fletch Dini.
The way that, first of all, the length of his career and the number of games he played. I mean, there were a lot of guys that I love that only were here 1 or 2 years, and you can't really put them on. Yeah, Patrick Robinson. What a great year that was.
My God.
One of my favorite plays in the history of the Eagles, that interception return to the NFC Championship. But you can't put P-Rob even in your top 20 because he was only 1 year.
I wanted to put Chris Long on my list so bad.
Yeah, I know. I did too. I did too. Oh, my God. Yeah, I hear you. And just you're mentioning P-Rob about like 1 year guys. I was talking to people on Twitter about this. Another 1 year person who played outstanding for us for 1 year, Walter Thurman.
I was just about to say him.
Oh my God! Then he retired the year after. Like
really interesting guy too. Really good guy to talk to.
Just remember, if he doesn't retire, you probably don't get McLeod.
Oh yeah. Funny how things work out. But you were saying, Les, he was interesting to.
Walter Thurman was very interesting, very very smart guy. Really accomplished guy. He's done well in his post NFL endeavors. I think he's doing now? Filmmaking. I believe that's what he was doing several years ago. Not like blockbuster films, but
I didn't know that. Okay,
nice.
That's
cool
good to
guy.
know.
And there were a lot of people like that. Joselio Hansen was a hell of a player for this team for a few years, but you can't put everybody in there, and longevity. In fact, I would really argue with Troy Vincent as number 3 there for Chucks. I don't want to pick on Chucks, but Troy was gone by 2003, right?
2003, yeah.
I mean,
that's what I was talking to Brinks about.
Hell of a player, but
I hear you, yeah. Because like I was looking at his tenure, and like his Pro Bowls did happen like in that early span. So like he was at his peak when he was with us. In that
great player. Had a lot to do with them getting the NFC Championship game that first time against the Rams, but didn't have a long career in this century with the Eagles.
I hear it. Yeah. I think
But
I
again,
was,
it's subjective,
I was weighing his peak during that. Like, I guess I weighed that heavily because I remember him. He was like, as I was telling the guys, like I remember him like during that time. He was like the premier Eagles corner. He was like,
Yeah.
he
was
was
a leader and a spokesman and all that good stuff.
So yeah, I probably weighed a little bit too much, but I hear you. That's definitely an argument to make. So let's get to while we have less here, let's get to the last 5 of each of our rankings so we can discuss these players. PY, who you got from 6 to 10?
I got Trotter, Troy Vincent.
Okay.
I got Asante.
Okay.
Got Connor Barwin.
Okay.
And Hugh Douglas.
Brinks, who you got?
Number 6, I have Bobby Taylor.
Solid.
Okay. 7.
Trotter.
Okay.
What am I at? 8, Lito Shepherd.
Okay.
Number 9, Derek Burgess.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Extremely good pass rusher. Kind of that Trent Cole underrated ilk, but
not a long prime here, but
we're getting into the nitty gritty. And then number 10, I got another Jim Johnson guy. Carlos Emmons was the glue.
Oh yes, you're in my wheelhouse here.
Carlos Emmons, linebacker.
He covered every tight end. He was just there every week. If you remember in 2003, when we lost to the Panthers in the NFC Championship game, he broke his leg really late in the season, and it hurt them a lot.
Yeah.
Sean Foster doesn't do what he does in that NFC Championship game. Carlos Emmons is there.
I actually think it was like a shoulder arm thing with Carlos. I think he was playing with one arm in the playoffs that year.
Wow.
Which is a hell of a thing for a linebacker to do because you got to have to tackle people.
Tell him,
it's like T.O. playing on one leg.
One of his arms was what I remember. Maybe I remember it wrong, but it was amazing. Whatever.
Yep. All right, so my 6, I do have Mr. Trent Cole here at 6. 7, I have Asante. 8, I'm going to put. I have Trotter, and then 9, I believe. Yep, I have the tandem here, and I this might be biased, my number 10, because I personally love the way he played. I have Sheldon Brown at 10.
Okay, that's a legit pick. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, we're a little bit all over the place with our rankings here. We do some of the common guys. We have second half is obviously we have Trotter. PY does put Troy Vincent there. We have Sante. Me and PY agree with. Lito, I believe we all have. No. PY, you don't have Lito. None of us have Burgess or Emmons. I mean, Connor Barwin just missed. Hugh Douglas just missed for me. Bobby Taylor just missed for me. A lot of the guys you guys mentioned, I struggled like really trying to include them, but Sheldon Brown got the number 10 for me. But
we got the core ones. That's the most important part.
Yeah, we get to talk about a bunch of guys. Like, so Les, like for you, I know you sent me a lot of people. I don't know.
I sent you a top 20 just for fun.
Yeah,
and I realize now looking at it that I completely left out Troy Vincent, which you can't do. So but
it was. Yeah, I mean, you have great names on here. Like, you did mention Chris Long. You included Hassan Reddick. Carlos Emmons, you touched on. Corey Simon, before Fletcher Cox, Corey Simon was the defensive tackle for the Eagles. Rodney McLeod.
Yeah, the problem with Corey is he didn't get enough out of – he was a great player, and he kind of didn't – he got really heavy and kind of played his way out of the league pretty quickly. He could have been a lot better than what – I mean, he was a really high pick. What was he, like 6th overall or something like that?
He was a first round. Yeah, he was early.
That's 6 or 12.
He wasn't as good as he should have been, but he wasn't a key part of that Super Bowl 39 team.
Did Mike Mamula make your top 20?
Oh, not in this century. No, I mean he was totally in the 90s.
He was nowhere near as bad as people thought he was.
Oh, that's true.
You're right
That's
about
absolutely,
that, PY.
Reuben Frank is the guy who always
Yes,
picks up
that is his bread and butter.
you know.
He loves because people bring him up all the time, and I'm just
well,
like,
that was
he had
when
like 30 something sacks. Like you can't be a bust
Right.
with that type
that
of
was when
production.
the
You just can't.
Hurries thing was like a new stat, and people made fun of it because he didn't get to the quarterback quite as much as they thought he should. So people made fun of Hurries, like, what the hell is this? You know. But yeah, Mamula was a good player. He wasn't a great player. He probably was overdrafted, but he was. People call him like an all-time bust. No, of course not.
Yeah.
He's not.
If you have 32 and a half sacks, I can't consider you a bust. Like maybe you underperformed. Yeah. But also that's one of those weird things to where the only thing he cared about was acing that combine. Like that's all he did was practice.
And he was the first guy that ever did that. You know, the combine was in its infancy back then.
Yep.
And it was
that's a way bigger bust right there.
Now everybody
way bigger bust.
Combine.
You're way bigger, yep.
But my second five were Hugh, Malcolm, Asante Samuel, Hassan Reddick, and I had said Chris Long, but I think I got to put Troy Vincent in there as number 10 because I didn't have him in before that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you still covering the team when Chris Long was still part of it?
Oh yeah, and what a great guy. Yeah. In fact, I did he didn't do it this last year, but he did for 2 years there, he did a pregame at an Eagles game thing for his Water Boys charity, which is about bringing water to Africa, people in Africa who don't have access to clean water. And I was like the MC for that for a couple years. So, yeah, I like Chris a lot. He's one of my favorite all-time Eagles.
Such a good dude.
Yes. Do you, when you look at Les, when you look over the years, especially since the 2000 era and on, when it comes to, I guess you can say, short-term players that have come on, maybe been here only 1 year, 2 years, like, would you say Chris Long was probably one of the most impactful? Because,
I mean, he had a lot to do with winning that Super Bowl, man. Yeah. He and Michael Bennett, frankly, both, had a lot to do with winning that Super Bowl. But yeah, Chris was a great addition at the very end of his career, unfortunately, but he still had plenty left. If he and Jim Schwartz had gotten along better, I think he would have had I think he could have stayed another year or two.
Yeah.
And there was talk of him coming back one year. I guess the first year after he retired, they had some injuries, but it was almost done. He was almost, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here. He was almost signed to come back, and he met with Schwartz, and Schwartz was like, well, I don't know if I'll play you very much.
Yeah.
You might be inactive, And Chris was like, I'm not coming back for that, And they just weren't, for whatever reason, those two guys did not get along. I don't know why, but, I thought
weird guy.
I have a lot of respect for Schwartz and I have a lot of respect for Chris, but for some reason they were not a good group together. But he was tremendous. Someone mentioned Connor Barwin. Connor only had like a couple real good years as an Eagle. He was a 3-4 outside linebacker guy more than almost anybody that's ever played here. And they didn't play that scheme for very long. And he was not a super young guy when he got here. But what a great guy and what a great Eagle, that guy has been, and still a big part of the organization,
Yeah, absolutely. It's so crazy when you talk about like guys who have come to this organization over the past 20 plus years and have really made Philly their home, even with short stints. Because I remember when we switched back to the 4-3, I was like, Barwin's not going to last because he's a 3-4 guy. But I was really happy to see that he stayed local and he's still part of the organization. He's one of the fan favorites. I know he's with my sister. He remains one of her favorite Eagles. Him and Brian Dawkins. So gotta love. Yeah, him, Chris Long. I don't know if there's anyone else like Les that jumps out to you in any of our lists. I know
there's a guy there. I wouldn't put him in the top 10. but he's kind of a forgotten guy who was a very good player during an era when the team was up and down and not really that good all the time. Juquay Parker.
Oh, yeah.
Really
Yeah,
good
sure.
player. I mean, he
Yep.
played a lot of games for the Eagles.
Mhm.
And
Jason Babin.
no.
He
No.
stunk.
Kind of the anti-Jason Babin, really. He was Juquay gave it everything he had all the time, and he wasn't like a spokesman. He wasn't a guy you talked to a lot. He didn't really have a lot to say, but that was a warrior there. One of those guys that really earned his money, I thought.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I remember Jaquay. Another one that another short stint guy that didn't last long, but I was always high on when he did play with us was Brandon Boykin. And you remember his knees gave
Boykin
out.
was solid. It's a shame.
I thought he was more than solid. If it wasn't for his knees, I thought that he could have been extremely good. But I think I don't know, Les, if you have any more insight. I think the Eagles staff knew that he wasn't going to last.
He
long.
wasn't a big guy, and he was a slot corner, and he played hard, and he tackled hard, and he just wasn't going to hold up. He went to Pittsburgh and really burned out quickly after that. It was a shame because I liked him a lot. He was a guy from Georgia, another smart, really fun guy to talk to. I liked him a lot, and I had a lot of respect for him. But again, like you said, not a long career. A guy that was really important, and again, you guys are a lot younger than me, and I don't want these guys to get forgotten. Hollis Thomas, player for this team. Yeah. You remember Michael Vick running up the middle in that NFC Championship game?
NFC Championship game. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember all too well. Yep.
Hollis was the guy that there's a lot of harsh realities to this league. One of the things that I didn't know when I started covering the NFL is that you can have a contract, and we all know this now, but this was a long time ago. You can have a contract, and if you get hurt and don't play very much that year, the team can come back to you in the offseason and say, you know what, we don't want to pay you what we owe you. You better re-sign with us for this figure here that's much lower, or we'll just cut you, and you can see if anybody else wants you after you missed all last season. And they did that to Hollis. And I remember talking to him about it, and he was like, yeah, what am I going to do? They said I was only worth X, so I'm not sure anybody at that point. It was late in his career. He was like, I can't be certain that somebody's going to, pay me a lot more money at this point. So, but that everybody says when players want to renegotiate, fans are all upset. Like the team never does. Well, the team does that all the time.
Yeah. To some of the comments in the chat, we got John chiming in with his second 5. It's he got 6. He's got Trotter, 7 Malcolm, 8 Cole, 9 Sheldon, 10 Hassan.
The only thing with Hassan is the short tenure. Again, I mean, one of the greatest seasons in Eagles history since Reggie White, maybe. But
he was really good. He was really good for us.
How about him on the Jets? He didn't show up to mini camp, and they were shocked.
I'm really
he's in Japan right now.
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram. Yeah. In Japan.
I'm quite intrigued by this because I thought if Joe Douglas knows the Eagles as well as anybody in the league, I thought if the Jets trade or sign this guy, they're going to want, they're going to have a deal worked out. That was my assumption. They don't have a deal worked out.
Well, there was a report out that he basically told them, it's I'm going to play. I'm not worried about my contract. And then once I have a great year, we'll figure it out next year.
No, that would have been, he could have stayed with the Eagles and done that. Why go to the Jets, who aren't, frankly, even with Aaron Rodgers, going to be that good? That was not what he wanted. He wanted the problem with Hassan is he wanted to make up for the money that he didn't make, the last time he signed, which never happens. Nobody ever does that. If you do it, you found a team that's really a sucker. But I assumed that the Jets were willing to meet his demands, and they aren't. And it's not a great. I don't think it's a great look for Hassan. I don't think he.
I think it says a lot that with the way it looks right now, that the Eagles were willing to trade him, and B, the way he's acting, the way he is, says that a lot of the reports of the sack chasing and things like that, and the locker room issues, maybe played a bigger part and were more real than people wanted to give credit for.
Well, he feels aggrieved, and that's okay, but there's a larger picture here for any team you play for, and you got to be about that larger picture to some extent, or you're not. It's not going to work out.
I don't really
Hassan,
care.
this is his fourth team. I mean, there are guys that a great guy, Hassan, to talk to. Nice man, does a lot in the community for Camden, but that's. You got to look at what your situation is, and you can't make up money that you didn't make 3 years ago. That's just not how the league works.
Not how the business works.
They don't pay you for that. They pay you for what you're going to do.
Yeah. What were you saying, Brinks? You were about to say
something.
something.
I don't care that he's not there, because if I were an athlete, especially in the NFL, if my money wasn't right, I wouldn't show up anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. But don't say you're going to show up and play it out and then don't come.
Right.
I think for me, it's to there is a level of it that where, Hassan looks bad, but to me also on the Jet side, it's just to me that it just seems like common sense to, if you're trading for a guy who really wanted a new contract to the point where he wants to be traded out of his hometown team, that tells me I'm going to make it a priority to
right. I'm shocked that the Jets didn't think they had to do this.
I'm not. It's the most Jets thing. What about the Jets in the last year or so has really surprised you?
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers and everything he does, all the things, the ridiculous stuff with Zach Wilson. Nothing has surprised me about the Hassan Reddick situation and the Jets. It's the most Jets move ever.
I don't want to beat up Joe Douglas too much though, because I do think Joe Douglas is a good GM.
Overrated.
He does have his flaws, but I think that you could do a lot worse than Joe Douglas.
I just remember.
I agree, it's questionable. That it was a questionable move that they traded for Hassan and didn't give him a new contract.
He told him he was going to show up and play, and then figure it out later.
Yep.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and that looks bad on him.
That does look bad. They got him for very little, and I think Howie earlier in the offseason was very sensitive to that point. That he did not get much for Hassan Reddick, and it was. I think that was the attraction for the Jets, but the Jets had to know what they were getting into, and like you said, he wanted a contract, and if you're, it's now the numbers he wanted initially were too high, frankly. I mean, he's not an all-around defensive end. He's not. He's not a Bosa. He's not a Miles Garrett.
No.
He's not. Yeah,
he's not. I mean, he's not.
Yeah, I agree. Some more comments here in the chat before we move on. We got Boykin had a pick six. That was the highlight. That pick six against the Cowboys. Well, I always remember that.
Was that a pick six? Because he had the one.
No, pick six.
Kneel down.
Kyle Orton. Yeah, it was. Yeah, he picked off
Kyle Orton. Uncle Rico.
Kyle Orton. Patrick Robinson, Matthew Walsh does mention Patrick Robinson.
Yeah.
Very good sock owner. And it was so funny. I'm sure we all remember how horrible his training camp was. And for him to
they said they were gonna cut him like 2 weeks prior to the season starting.
Yeah, and they stuck with him, and he turned out to be phenomenal. So that's
I owe Patrick Robinson so much, in my opinion, because my dad always bullies me for being for a Philly guy, right? All day I get text messages from him. Oh, son, they're gonna hurt you. They're gonna disappoint you. It's gonna be a tough time when you get home. They're down 7-0. He's at the 20-yard line. They're about to score. And I'm like, oh God, I can't go home to this. Oh God, please. And then he catches that pick six and takes it home. And there was life.
And the way he ran it back, it was like in the family
most
circus.
Ridiculous
when
thing
Jeff
ever.
was touring the neighborhood.
Yeah.
There's the dotted line of, he was all. He must have run 400 yards to run that.
And don't forget, Ronald Darby sacrificed himself for the.
He got laid out, son.
He got lit up, but it helped
He
lead
got
to that.
demoed.
Yeah, he got. But hey, he did what he had to do. So he's.
It is pretty unbelievable. Like if you look at the slot corners that we've had here since 2000.
Yeah, that's
Unbelievable.
You're right. Al Harris was the first.
Al
Al Harris,
and he was good.
Boykin.
I mean,
he was a
really
knucklehead.
good.
He was a
Yeah,
knucklehead to the
Robinson.
10th degree, but he was really good. You had Roderick Hood, was
Yeah.
really good. You mentioned Giselio Hansen.
Yeah.
Maddox was good for a portion.
Yeah.
I feel like
Still
I'm
good.
missing guys. Patrick Robinson, who we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Like they always seem to figure that out, and it helps
Yeah.
a lot.
Martian
It's really
says
funny
DRC.
that's one of the things they can figure out. DRC, no,
DRC.
absolutely not. No.
Oh boy. Oh,
DRC is the
Namdi.
guy that in 2012, when the team started out 3-1 and ended up 4-12,
mhm.
DRC is the guy that in December, Andy Reid had to kind of call him into his office and say, you're still getting paid. We need to go out there on Sunday and give it
Oh my
the
God.
old try.
He had so much talent, though. He was a talent.
He did have a lot of talent. Yep.
But yeah, it never was. I hear you. One question I did have before we let you go, Les. We're talking about great defensive players since 2000, and all these different eras that we have or generations that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me, because I've always wondered like what was like behind the locker room, or in the locker room. When they transitioned after the 2003 season, they went from Troy Vincent and Bobby Taylor over and handed over the reins to second-year guys. They were third-year guys at that point. Third-year guys, Leo Shepard, Sheldon Brown. What was that like feeling in the locker room as a reporter? Was the team always confident in that duo going into that camp, or was there like that hesitancy still, where like we still don't know, because Lito and Sheldon, it seems so that year.
I think they were confident. I don't remember that much about exactly what they felt, but the leadership reins went to Doc at that point, who had been an ascending player, but with Troy around, you didn't really hear that much from Doc. Doc became like a centerpiece of the defense after Troy left, I felt like. They were pretty confident. There was a lot of conflict around those departures. Neither one of those guys wanted to leave.
Yeah,
Troy Vincent and Bobby Taylor. Mm-hmm. And I think I might have said this before. If I did, I apologize for repeating myself. But my favorite Bobby Taylor memory is when he was trying to get a deal the year that he left, and the Eagles just weren't going to give him what he wanted. And he was complaining to me. This is 2003. He's complaining to me that, my agent can't even get Joe Banner. They had him talk to some guy named Howie.
You gotta be kidding me.
Howie's probably like, I get you a good deal.
This was a great insult to Bobby Taylor that some dude named Howie was doing his contract.
I bet you the Howie guy was probably willing to give him the better offer than the Joe guy.
Why, maybe, but they knew. That's why they drafted those guys. That's why they drafted Lito and Sheldon. Nobody expected that, for them to draft two corners in the first two rounds. They had it all mapped out. Joe Banner was
familiar.
Joe Banner, for better or for worse, Joe had these plans. Guys get to a certain point, and make the Pro Bowl, fine, move on. And he stuck to that, and it wasn't always great for morale. And he wasn't always
terrible.
right.
He was terrible for morale.
What he did,
terrible.
Doc. I mean, his greatest failure, Dawkins, not being able to sign him. I mean, that's always going to be.
Dawkins,
what happened there all season long? Doc was telling us, I know that I'm not going to get a deal like I got last time. I'm kind of toward the end, and I don't want to leave here. We'll get it done. But Doc's agent had a very different idea. These agents are competitive within agent circles, and you don't want to be the guy that didn't get a good deal for Brian Dawkins. So Doc wasn't really looking to leave, but his agent was out there, beating the bushes. And the Eagles were pretty confident that there was not a deal out there that would pay a lot more than what they were offering. Well, Denver came along and, and they were like, and Joe was like, oh, they are willing to pay. Oh gosh, and the horse was out of the barn then, and it was, and that happened, and then Deshaun Jackson basically la-di-died through an entire season because Joe wouldn't give him the deal he wanted, and that was it for Joe. I mean, Andy Reid had enough of Joe's bargaining, by that point that it was
all the guy had to do was give Terrell Owens a couple extra $1 million, and that window would have stayed open.
As much as I hate to be that guy, he played 1 year. He had to sign a 6-year contract, and he played 1 year.
He played on one leg in the Super Bowl.
Demanded that they give him a new contract. And
we'll get into
this.
Yes,
they should have done it.
You play on the Super Bowl on one leg. You deserve a new contract.
Approached that not knowing who they were dealing with. There was a way to do that, and they did it exactly the wrong way. Trashing Donovan McNabb, who was the franchise quarterback coming off the Super Bowl, and doing things that you had pledged they weren't. Because T.O. came here with a reputation from San Francisco where he where he implied that Jeff Garcia was gay. He promised them he wouldn't do this crap, and then they did it. And in retrospect, they could have given him the money, but he was still going to find something. He was a psycho. He was going to find something to be pissed about. It's just who he is.
Since we have
still is today.
Yes, Les. Since we still have you on with us every week, I think during one of these weeks upcoming, we'll dive into that because I think you can give good insight. But I have a feeling PY is going to be arguing against us. But just a heads up, Les, I agree with you a lot. Like
I'll break out the T.O. jersey.
A lot of people get on me when I say this, but I always say T.O. is just as much a culprit of what happened as anyone else. The
greatest talent I ever covered, biggest psycho I ever covered.
Yeah. And him and Donovan, they still won't give it up. They still.
Well, it's him. I mean, I don't think Donovan has said
Donovan brought it back up again a few years ago, Les.
What?
Yeah, but T.O. did too.
Donovan brought it up again a few years ago.
T.O. did it before him too.
I don't think Donovan is the one who brings it up. I really don't. Maybe I'm wrong.
Though. He was doing the interview and he was talking about it.
Well, it was a Bleacher Report interview, PY, and before I remember, there were interviews that T.O. had when he was on radio, the Philly radio and stuff like that. He would always bring it up, and he would always still deflect blame. So and I agree, Matt Walsh, exactly. They are equally at fault. They're both like an organization too. But this is a deep topic. We'll get into it.
I'm sorry.
60 McNabb, 40 T.O. There we go.
I don't think T.O. liked that he was out there playing on one leg, killing it against the Patriots, and Donovan McNabb throwing up all over himself as the
the night before.
I didn't like it either.
I've got to go here, but the throw up wasn't the problem. He threw a touchdown pass at the end of that drive.
That is very true.
Andy wanted the full
threw like 4 interceptions.
Andy didn't want to hurry up on that drive. Andy didn't want to hurry up. The problem was the interceptions he threw earlier in the game, especially the one in the first half where the ball slipped out of his hand.
Oh, my God,
him for. But the narrative that they – again, we could talk for hours about this.
Was that the sequence where he threw interceptions on 2 straight plays?
Second half of that game. Go back and watch the second half of that game and show me what Doc or Trot did.
Yeah, it's
in any sense of the Donovan became everything gets shortened down to the this is the thing. It was not all about Donovan actually, but anyway, I got to go.
Yeah. All right, Les, thank you again. Anything you want to plug in before you head out?
Yeah, I'm writing on PHLY. I haven't done anything in the last few days because there's nothing going on, and I hate those make work. We're just trying to tap dance our way to training camp kind of pieces. But if something happens, I'll certainly write about it.
Yep. All right, Les. Thank you so much
Thank
again.
you, guys. And
We
go
brought
Edmonton
you
Les.
on.
Oilers.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week. All right.
All right. Take care.
See you, Les. That's Les Bowen, and we are Birds of a Feather. Again, we're brought to you by Bosier's Bread in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pie sandwiches, cutlets, meatballs. Mention ATD Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. So we've got our list, guys, and if you've got more input on it, more feedback, let us know. I know we have Greg here. Of course, this is a Greg Milakovic comic. He goes, "What's up, guys? Disagree to the poll. I'll say he was the best. He was the anchor of a Super Bowl winning team. That matters." So
No.
he's literally going to put Fletcher Cox above Brian Dawkins, who was the
Sir,
Hall
we're getting a company-wide piss test going on, and you're the first
That's
one
right.
going.
It's
Do you
great.
guys think Fletcher Cox is going to go to the Hall of Fame?
No.
He has a case.
I think he could. I don't think he gets in first ballot or nearly as soon as Dawkins did when he was eligible. And I think his Dawkins' resume was more surefire than Fletcher Cox's resume is. So
I mean, was Doc even first ballot? I hate first ballot Hall of Fame.
no, he wasn't.
Like,
But what I'm saying is
He
his
should have
resume,
been.
his resume is still more impressive, and you make a better case for him
it's so
than
stupid.
Ken Fletcher. So
Like, think about it. Like, okay, you're not like a Hall of Famer on your first try, but then the second year, oh yeah, you're automatically a Hall of Famer.
I think that
But a lot of that
Dumbest
is
thing ever.
in
a
the
lot
end,
of it.
I think it's what I hate about football is that there's so many players, but they limit the number of people that can get in every year. I would love, and I've said this for years, I would love them to adopt the system similar to baseball's, where you vote, the committee votes, and for each player. So like, there's no limit to how many can get in. You just vote, like, okay, like you have to reach a certain percentage of votes for the player to get in or not. And if they're in, they're in.
Baseball's the worst one.
Yeah, but I mean,
feel like with as petty as some of the football writers are, they would use that to keep certain guys out. Like the fact that like T.O. doesn't get in on his first try because of character issues, but Randy Moss of all dudes is a first ballot Hall of Famer despite all of his character crap.
It was
O.J. Simpson. Isn't O.J. Simpson in the Hall of Fame?
Well, no, that's before he had any though.
That is true. So yeah,
So
that's
a choir boy prior to that.
Oh, with a few minutes left in this show,
I mean, Lawrence Taylor had to get picked up by the state police because he was coked out of his mind.
And all the domestic violence charges.
Before we go, last few minutes, let's talk about current Eagles. I mean, it won't be a long conversation, but current Eagles that in a few years, 10 years maybe, who do you think has a chance to crack this top 10? I know that there's one obvious one, but let's go around the horn breaks. I'm going to start with you this time. Name one Eagle. Is there an Eagle currently that you think could crack this top 10?
A lot of people have a lot to prove before I can think about that. Like I can't project the two rookies. I don't know what they are. We think they're good. Are they? I have no idea. Nobody does. If people knew, then drafting would be super easy, and it's not at all. Trying to think. We have Bryce Huff, Brandon Graham still on the team. He was on all of our lists.
Yeah.
Am I missing people? Oh, Jalen Carter. Yes. Jalen Carter's the answer, right?
There you go.
Jalen Carter's the answer.
I would say Jalen Carter. I think if I don't think it's going to happen because I think this is his last year. But if somehow if Slay played another 2 years, like this year and another year, and the Eagles won a Super Bowl in one of those 2 years with Slay, I think Slay would make a case.
I think he could. Yeah. He's been exceptional for the Eagles for what they gave up.
Keep captain too, and so I think I think he's gone after this year. So I think it's irrelevant. But I think if he were to play 2 or 3 more years with us, and we would win a Super Bowl, I think that case could be made. Jalen Carter is an obvious one. We already mentioned Brandon Graham. It's. I think those are guys you're talking about. And
Josh Sweat.
No, I don't think Josh. I think Josh Sweat, as much as I love him, was always a tier 2 edge rusher. I don't think he's ever been elite, which is fine. I mean, he was a fourth round pick with
You
injury
think if
concern.
Milton Williams stays, there's any chance of that happening?
I think it's with Milton. He'd have to earn a starting job. He's still a backup, so I can't. It's hard to say. And like the first few years of his career, he hasn't done anything because he's been a backup. So that's already he doesn't have that notch on his belt yet. So
I mean, Milton Williams, I like him a lot. I think he's a really good role player, but like, am I really
yeah,
going to
yeah.
be a
There's
top
nothing.
10
Yeah,
of
there's
anything in
nothing
Eagles
there.
defensive history?
Well, it's all projection. It's what you think could happen with them.
Yeah, projection wise, I don't
anything
think.
could happen.
Well, I think, but to PY's question, I think projection wise, I still wouldn't because there's nothing that he's flashed to show me he could be top tier talent to earn a starting job. Again, to Briggs' point, he's shown to be a really good rotational guy, but is there a reason they haven't made him a starter? Maybe it's because he hasn't played to that level yet and proven it. So, it's hard to say. I'd say no, but
It's going to be really tough for him to start because you have Jordan Davis, who was the 9th pick in the draft, and
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter was the 9th pick in the draft, and Jordan Davis was what, 11 or 10?
14?
14?
12 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, he's fighting 2 first-round picks
Mm-hmm.
for a starting spot. It's just if it's close, like it's not happening. He has to be so much better at training camp and practice than those guys to get on the field. That it's just doesn't mean he's not good. I like him. Every time he's in there, it's like, wow, there's Milton Williams again. He's actually one of the only players that showed up against Tampa in the playoffs last year. Him and Devontae Smith.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bricks. So we got like 3 more minutes left. Let's do this just to kill time. We got a lot of people chiming in. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got a lot of viewers. We're up to like over 1,000, so thank you. But to finish this off, I'm going to exclude Brian Dawkins because I think that's cheating. Who is your favorite defensive player in Eagles history in the past 20 plus years since 2000?
Malcolm.
You, Malcolm.
Probably outside of Dawkins, probably Trot. Whenever he was making big plays and got the axe thing going, the crowd went wild. Like momentum would shift. Like when he was doing well, the team was usually cooking.
Yeah. I agree. To me, it would be a tie for me between Malcolm, like you said, PY, and Sheldon Brown. I always was a Sheldon Brown guy. Like I always thought he was so underrated, and he played the position the way that I love to see it play. Like he man corner, physical, not afraid to hit. I always love his hit against Reggie Bush in the playoffs. That's a memory I always have. So those two are probably my favorite over the past 24 plus years. There have been a lot though, and we are so grateful that we've had those guys on our team. You know what I mean? We've been fortunate over the eras of Jim Johnson. I know there was a lull there, but Jim Schwartz brought us a Super Bowl winning team and defense. And now, hopefully Vic Fangio can stabilize this defense now, maybe hopefully for several years forward until he retires, hopefully he stays. So we've got a lot to look forward to. Thank you to everyone who joined in Eagles Talk. This was a fun topic. We had a lot of different opinions, but I love that we were able to kind of look back and see the guys that we had play for this team, since 2000. It's always fun in the offseason when you look back and see talk about those type of players. Next week we will probably either, if anything else, as long as nothing else comes up topic wise, Eagles wise, we'll probably switch to the other side of the ball and go offense. So if you want to tune in to have that conversation, definitely tune in next week. But for myself, everyone else here at ATD Radio, PY, Brinks, we love you. Make sure you check out all our other shows that we got on during the week. And we We're out here. Enjoy Game 7 if you're watching. It's 2-1 Panthers, so they go one more period away. Brinks, you're almost cashing out. One more period away. Just gotta hold on. So for us at Eagles Talk, we love you, appreciate you. Go Birds. Peace.
Go Birds!